Welcome to Silk Dark Secrets, where darkness tells its secrets. In the quiet town of Sundarpur, where evenings were filled with the sound of temple bells and the streets glowed under soft yellow lights, to innocent hearts unknowingly began a story that would remain unfinished forever. Arav was a simple boy with gentle dreams. He was not the kind who spoke loudly or tried to impress everyone around him. Instead, he carried a calm silence in his personality, as if his heart was always busy understanding the world quietly. Arav worked at his father's small stationery shop near the town's old school. Every morning, students came rushing to buy pens, notebooks, and pencils before the first bell rang. Arav would smile softly and hand them their things, sometimes adding a free eraser to a child who looked sad. Life for Arav was simple, until the day Meera walked into the shop. Meera had just moved to Sundarpur with her family. She was studying in the same school near the shop and needed some notebooks. When she entered the shop, the wind pushed a few strands of her hair across her face. She looked around quietly before asking, "Bhaiya, do you have a blue notebook?" Arav looked up for the first time and saw her standing there. For a moment, he forgot to answer. Her voice was soft, and her eyes carried a strange innocence that instantly caught his attention. Arav quickly looked down, trying to hide his nervousness. Yes, I have," he replied. He handed her the notebook carefully as if it was something fragile. Meera smiled politely, paid the money, and left. For her, it was just a small purchase. For Arav, it was the beginning of something he could not explain. Days passed, and Meera began visiting the shop often. Sometimes she came to buy a pen, sometimes a notebook, and sometimes just an eraser. Arav slowly started recognizing her footsteps before she even entered the shop. Whenever she came, he tried to act normal, but his heart would beat a little faster. Their conversations were always small. "Do you have a black pen?" "Yes." "Thank you." "You are welcome." But behind those simple words, something deeper was quietly growing. Arav never tried to talk more than necessary. He respected the invisible distance between them. But every evening, after closing the shop, he would sit outside for a few minutes, thinking about the moments when she smiled. To him, those smiles felt like sunlight on a cold day. One rainy afternoon, Meera entered the shop drenched in rain. Her umbrella had broken, and water drops were sliding down her hair. Arav quickly grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter. "You might catch a cold," he said, nervously handing it to her. Meera hesitated but accepted it with a small laugh. "Thank you. I didn't expect the rain today." That day, they spoke for the first time like two friends. Meera told him about her old city, her favorite books, and how she loved writing poetry but never showed it to anyone. Arav listened quietly. He wasn't good with words, but he was good at listening. And sometimes, listening is the purest form of care. After that day, their conversations slowly became longer. Meera would sometimes sit on the small wooden stool in the shop, while waiting for the rain to stop, or for her school van. They talked about small things, movies, books, dreams, and the future. But Arav never said what his heart truly felt. He was afraid. Afraid that if he spoke, the beautiful simplicity of their bond might break. Months passed. For Arav, Meera had become the most beautiful part of his day. But he still kept his feelings hidden. One evening, Meera came to the shop looking unusually quiet. Arav noticed immediately. Is everything okay? He asked. Meera took a deep breath before answering. My father got transferred again. We are leaving Sundarpur next week. The words felt like a sudden storm. Arav stood silent. Inside him, thousands of emotions were crashing against each other. He wanted to say something. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to tell her that she had become the most important person in his life. But the words never came out. Instead, he just nodded slowly. That's good, he said with a forced smile. Meera looked at him carefully, as if she expected something more. But Arav stayed quiet. And sometimes, silence becomes the biggest regret. On Meera's last day in Sundarpur, she came to the shop one final time. The evening sun painted the sky with shades of orange and pink. She placed a small notebook on the counter. This is for you, she said. Arav looked confused. It's my poetry notebook, she continued softly. I thought, maybe you would like to read it someday. Arav carefully held the notebook. It felt heavier than any book he had ever touched. Meera then said something that stayed with him forever. You are a good person, Arav. I hope life gives you everything you deserve. She smiled. But there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. For a brief moment, Arav thought about saying the words he had buried inside his heart for so long. But the fear of losing the moment held him back. So he simply said, Take care. Meera nodded. Then she walked away. And with every step she took, Arav felt something inside him slowly breaking. Years passed. Sundarpur changed. New shops opened, roads were widened, and the old school got a new building. But Arav's life remained almost the same. He still ran the stationery shop. He still smiled at students who came rushing for pens and notebooks. But every night, after closing the shop, he opened Meera's poetry notebook. Inside it were poems about dreams, friendships, loneliness, and hope. On the very last page, there was a small line written in delicate handwriting. Some feelings are never spoken, but they stay alive forever. Arav understood those words more deeply than anyone else. He never knew if Meera felt the same way. He never knew if she waited for him to speak. And now, he would never know. But somewhere in his heart, the memory of her smile still lived quietly, like a soft melody that never fades. Not every love story ends with two people together. Some stories remain incomplete. Not because the love was weak, but because the hearts were too innocent to speak. Arav and Meera's story never had a proper beginning, and it never had a real ending. Yet it was filled with pure emotions, silent care, and unspoken words. And sometimes, those unfinished stories become the most beautiful ones. Because even though time moves forward, some love stories remain paused forever in a single moment of innocence. Thanks for listening our story. Please visit Silk Dark Secret where the night whispers stories you'll never forget. And subscribe to our channel for more stories like this.